Maybe we are starting. Well, good morning. Welcome. No, there we go. Good morning. Welcome to Good morning. Welcome to Happily Ever Story Time. We're starting just a little bit early, just to get people a chance to come in and join us. I do have a couple guests today. This is David and Adelaide. Mwah. Mwah. Don't worry, we're still quarantining as a family, and even though I should be keeping 6 feet difference, we're all family. We all share the same terms anyway. So you're okay with that? Are you okay with that? Okay. No, don't do that. Okay. All right. So today, this is, I know I put it in this post earlier, promoting this event, but this is something that I've been thinking about a while because I read you guys these stories and I think to myself, hey, this is how this relates to Daddy's job. So I wanted to share some of that with all of you. And these two wanted to join us as well, right?
Because we're his son and I'm his daughter and David's his son.
Yeah,
I think they already know that.
Well, maybe not. Okay, so.
Can we tell them that it's my book?
No, what? So, do you want to take a little break?
It's my book.
Well, once we get going, we're going to get going.
It's my book. Hey, it's my book.
All right. Oh, hey, look at Grandma's here. She's watching you. Yeah, Grandma. All right. So, it's 10 o'clock. Thank you all for joining. As people come in, you will join us. Today's story is The Musicians of Bremen. This is a Grimm fairy tale, and it does have a very important lesson as we talk about this today. The lesson we're going to be talking about is going to be estate planning, but that's going to be for the adults later. Kids, don't worry about that. Once upon a time, a farmer owned an old donkey. The donkey had worked faithfully for his master for many years. He had carried huge sacks of wheat up the hill and to the mill, and bags of flour back down again. He pulled heavy laden carts great distances, been ridden into town on the back by the farmer's wife and children. As he grew older, the poor donkey's strength began to fail him. He was no longer able to perform all the tasks that the farmer set for him. With each day that passed, the donkey became more and more unfit for the hard work for the farmer, for which the farmer needed him. Yes. At last, the farmer decided that it was time for him to get rid of the poor old donkey, as he could not afford to keep the beast if he could not perform his duties. However, the old donkey overheard the farmer talking to his wife about whether he should turn the donkey out or put an end to him. The donkey, guessing that his future at the farm looked grim, decided he would run away. After some thought, the donkey resolved that he would take the road to the town of Bremen, famous for its freedom, where he could make his own living as a town musician. So he headed off down the road to that great city. So Addie, you want to point out the beard? Addie was amused by the beard. That is the beard. All right.
Donkey beard.
That is a donkey beard.
There's a dog.
After the donkey had walked a little way, spoilers, he came across, what did he come across, Adelaide?
A dog.
A dog lying next to the road. The dog was panting as though he was tired after running a long distance. "Hello, old friend," said the donkey. "Why are you panting so out of breath?" "Alas," replied the dog, "now that I'm old and getting weaker all the time, my master decided that I can no longer make myself useful when he's hunting. He decided to get rid of me, but I escaped and ran away. I've been traveling such a long way, but I have no idea how I'm going to earn my livelihood." "I've got an idea," said the donkey. "My master, was also going to get rid of me because I was too old to work for him. I have also run away, and I'm making my way to Bremen, where I will become a town musician. Why don't you join me? And we shall earn our living by making music together." The dog happily agreed, and so the two animals continued down the road together, talking about their plans to become musicians.
Dad. I can play this.
Yes, Adelaide, that's a book.
After the donkey and the dog had gone a little further, they spied a cat sitting by the road, looking miserable as a cat could possibly look. "Hello, dear lady," said the donkey. "Why do you look so very sad?" "You'd look miserable too if you were in danger of being thrown in a well," replied the cat. "Now that I'm getting old, my teeth and claws are becoming blunt. I'd much prefer to lie by the kitchen fire and purr and sleep instead of running around the house chasing mice all day. My mistress was going to get rid of me because I was of no further use to her. So I ran away, but now I don't know what's going to become of me." "Why don't you come with us to Bremen?" suggested the donkey. "The dog and I have also run away from our masters because we are too old. So we're going to try to earn our way by becoming town musicians. You are bound to make an excellent nighttime singer." The cat was very pleased with this idea, so the three animals continued down the road together towards Bremen.
They found a rooster.
Spoilers!
Ah,
Keep your mouth shut, please.
The donkey, dog, and cat had walked a little further when they saw a rooster perching on a farm gate. He was loudly crowing with all his might, creating an enormous racket. "Bravo!" cried the donkey. "What a wonderful performance! But tell me, why are you making all this fuss?" "I have been a good rooster and foretold fine weather for wash day," said the rooster. "But instead of getting any thanks, I heard that my mistress has company coming for Sunday lunch. She has told the cook to cut off my head tomorrow and cook me in a soup for them to eat. So here I am, crowing with all my might while I still can." "Goodness me!" exclaimed the donkey. "You had better come along with us, good sir."
They survive without their heads.
No, that's cockroaches, not chickens. Okay, thank you. Anything would be better than staying to have your head removed. Who knows? If we can all sing in tune, your powerful voice will be a very pleasing addition to our performance. The rooster was very happy to accept this offer, and so he joined them on their travels to Bremen. The four animals went on down the road together quite happily.
then they don't find anything. They fight robbers.
Spoilers!
Adelaide, spoilers!
I know, but
However,
Spoilers!
as they went along, the four friends realized that they could not reach Bremen in one day. As night approached, the travelers came to the forest. They walked together and decided that they would spend the night in the woods and then continue on to Bremen the next day. They should plan for them. The donkey, the dog, lay down to sleep on the ground under a great tree. The cat climbed up the branches of the tree for the rest. The rooster flew up. Stop. The rooster flew up to the top branches, flew up to the top of the tree, as was the safest place for him to perch for the night. As was his cat habit, the rooster looked around on all sides to make sure all was well before he settled down to sleep. As he was looking out into the woods, the rooster spied a little light through the trees, bright and shining. "I see a light," the rooster called down to his friends. "There must be a house nearby, as the light does not seem very far away." "If that is so," said the donkey, "it would be best if we got up and investigated. After all, this forest is not the best place to sleep, especially when there's somewhere close by that might be better. They might have a nice warm stable and some fresh hay for me to munch on. I wouldn't mind a bone or two either, or a bit of meat to eat, said the dog. Maybe there's a cozy blanket by the fire and a piece of fish to dine on, replied the cat. Or a snug hen house with some tasty corn for me to peck at, said the rooster. So the four friends decided that they would seek better quarters for the night. They set off together into the woods towards where the rooster had seen the light. As they came closer, the light shone brighter and brighter until they could see a snug little house all lit up. Now, it turned out that this was a house in which a gang of robbers lived. The donkey, being the tallest, went up to the window and peeked in. Well, donkey, what do you see? Asked the dog. What do I see? I see a large table laid out with all kinds of splendid things to eat, replied the donkey. I also see a gang of robbers sitting around a table, eating and drinking and looking very comfortable. That sounds like it would be very suitable for us, said the rooster. Yes, indeed, said the donkey. Now, if only we could get in there. The four friends consulted together on the best way to get the robbers out of the house. After a great deal of discussion, they formed a plan.
Donkey mustache is back.
Yes.
Where is it? I don't know.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
The donkey stood on his hind legs, with his front legs resting on the windowsill for support. The dog climbed on the donkey's back, and then the cat scrambled up on the dog's shoulders. Finally, the rooster flew up and perched himself on the top of the cat's head. When they were all ready, the donkey gave a signal, and the animals began to perform their music. The donkey brayed loudly. The dog barked furiously. The cat meowed at the top of her voice, and the rooster crowed deafeningly. The four animals crashed in through the window, tumbling amongst broken glass with a hideous clatter. That means a lot of noise. The robbers, who had already been alarmed by the noisy performance, thought some terrible goblin must be after them. They all took to their heels and fled into the woods. So here we have all of them standing up and playing their music.
Mustache.
There we have a mustache. And the robbers running away. That is kind of how it sounded.
Spoilers.
Once the coast was clear, the four friends sat down at the table and finished the robbers' splendid meal, feasting as if they hadn't seen food for a month. When they had finished their meal, they put out the lights, and each found a place to sleep. The donkey lay down outside in the yard on a pile of straw. The dog stretched out on a mat behind the front door. The cat curled up on the hearth in front of the ashes of the fire, and the rooster settled himself down on a beam in the ceiling. They soon fell asleep, as they were very tired from their long journey. As midnight drew near, the robbers, who were watching from afar, saw that no light was burning in their cottage. As it all seemed quiet and still, they thought maybe they had been in too much of a hurry to run away. The leader, worried that they had left their lair for no reason, instructed one of the thieves to go back to the cottage to investigate. There they are, getting ready to sleep in the background. You can see the bad guy starting to come back. You're
Okay,
covering up the bad guy.
trying to see
I
the
understand.
mustache.
I know.
There's no mustache.
Yeah. Oh, there's no mustache.
The robber crept up to the cottage and peered in the windows. Seeing nothing inside and finding that everything was quiet, He made his way into the dark kitchen. The robber groped around in the dark, trying to find a match so that he could light a candle. Hearing a noise, the cat, who had been sleeping in front of the fireplace, woke up and opened her eyes. The robber spied the glittering eyes of the cat, but he mistook them for burning coals in the fireplace. He stumbled forward, holding out the match to try and light it with the coals. But he only succeeded in poking the poor cat in the eye. At once, the cat flew into a rage and jumped up, spitting and screaming and scratching the unfortunate robber in the face with her claws. The frightened robber cried out in terror and ran out to the front door, but he stumbled over the dog, who had been woken up by all the noise. At once, the dog jumped up, growling furiously, biting the robber's ankles and legs with his sharp teeth. The ill-fated robber ran out the door into the yard, bumping into the donkey, who had gotten up to investigate what all the fuss was about. The donkey kicked out at the robber with his hind legs, catching the fellow square in the chest. All this time, the rooster, who had been woken up by the noise, stood in the rafters crowing cock-a-doodle-doo at the top of his voice. This is the image of a man having a very bad day. Yes. Yeah, he's having a bad day. The robber ran back to his gang as fast as he could to make his report to the leader of the gang. "It was awful," the robber cried. "I went into the kitchen, where I was attacked by a horrid witch who spat and scratched at me with her long, sharp fingernails." The robber paused for a breath before continuing. "As I ran out of the house, I was attacked by a man behind the door who stabbed me in the leg with a sharp knife." He paused to show his colleagues his bleeding leg. "Then I fled into the yard," said the robber, where I ran into a huge black monster who rose up in front of me and struck me with his huge, heavy club." The other gang members gasped as they looked at the robber's bruises. "Finally, as I ran away, a devil cried out from the roof of the house, 'Throw that rascal to me!' It shrieked. I ran away as fast as I could, and I'm never going back there." The frightened robber finished. Again, more images of a man having a very bad day.
Oh, darn. Oh, darn. That dude is having a bad day.
Yes, he is. From that time on, the robbers never dared go back to the house. The four travelers were so pleased with their new house that they decided to set up a home there and never made it to Bremen. And there they are, as it is said, until this very day. And they lived happily ever after. Oh, you're right. I got to show them.
And then we
It'd be
read
this.
another story.
Next week.
E-
No.
Next week.
Now you two can go play. I'm going to talk about some boring adult stuff. Thank you for your patience with that. They really wanted to join and be a part of some of the YouTube videos and Facebook Live. So why the Musicians of Bremen, and what does this have to do with the law today? Well, one of the primary focuses of my practice is something called estate planning. Estate planning, a lot of times, what it is it's forming a cohesive plan using legal documents in order to distribute property after your death and ensure that the right people are taking care of you while you're alive. A lot of people get hung up on the word estate in this, like, well, I want to make sure I have a will that goes after and make sure that I have my property going to Jimmy or whoever, and I want to make sure that the porcelain pig collection gets to Aunt Sally, and I want to make sure all that is correct. And that's a very natural, understandable response. But what I try and steer people is the estate portion of it isn't quite as important as the word plan. As we form our estate plans, plans are extremely important. And what the Musicians of Bremen also teaches us is plans change. You see, our plans in life need to be flexible. The Musicians of Bremen weren't musicians. They never made it to Bremen. They made it to a small house. They thought their lives was going to be living on their farms in peace with their loving masters. And then they found out their masters weren't quite as loving, and the tasks that they were doing, they couldn't do anymore. At that point, they changed their plans. While traveling to live out those plans, they found something else, and they made the best of it, and it worked. Our lives and our plans need to change along with that. As the facts of our lives change, as we find new people that we know, like, and trust, as our situations around us change, we need to be open to change our plans with it. And especially as we live in a very, very dynamic time with a lot of change underneath our feet, a lot of which we also can't control. This is a very important lesson to remind ourselves, both as adults and also our children, as we go about this. So thank you. Now is the time where I will open it up for any questions. As I answer any questions that you might have, please keep in mind any questions that I'll answer today in this format is going to be purely hypothetical. They are not intended to form an attorney-client relationship. And if you have specific questions, I would ask that you give myself or one of the other attorneys at Peterson, Berk Cross a call to set up an appointment and consultation so we can talk specifically about that. Kind of going through the thread, I'm not seeing any questions right now. Is there any questions out there from anybody who's been watching?
One pre-submitted question was, what types of changes? You talked about this being a dynamic time. What types of changes should people think, oh, this changed and I should use it as a trigger to reevaluate my estate plan?
Good question. And that's the disembodied voice that you hear is my wife, Mo, and she's off camera, except
Hello.
not there. Okay. So changes that you want to look for, this is going to change depending upon a person. What I always say is a good estate plan is a reflection of your life. So that's going to depend upon the changes that you have and what sort of plans that you have. Obviously, big ones, if you have a divorce, at some point, there's going to be a lot more videos that you're going to see, a lot more Facebook Live events, more YouTube videos that I'll be working with, and some of the other attorneys at Peterson, Berk Cross will be putting out with. And that's going to be, one of them is going to be estate planning and divorce. That's probably going to be me. If you have a divorce and you have an existing estate plan, your documents are going to be changing by law. And sometimes you might not like the way that the law has them automatically change on you. That's a really good time. So if you're contemplating divorce, you've had an estate plan, you probably should talk to a lawyer. That would be a great time to discuss that. Others would be the death or incapacitation of somebody in your documents that you already have. So if you have Uncle Frank as your power of attorney and Uncle Frank just died, he's probably not going to be a good power of attorney anymore. Also, the other thing that you might want to keep in mind for changes would be changes in wealth or changes in assets. If you have a cottage and your documents say, give the cottage to my grandson Frank, or my grandson Will, and then you give away your cottage or you sell your cottage, Will's not going to get that cottage anymore. So you should probably change your documents to match that as well. Let's see here. Going through if there are any other questions. I'm looking at the live comments right now. Are there any other questions on the page that I'm not seeing? No? Well, thank you so much for joining. I hope this was a good event. Next week, do you have the event up? I don't have it in front of me. Next week, I believe, next week is going to be Puss in Boots. So great story if you're a fan of Shrek. The Puss in Boots character is going to be a little bit of a surprise to you if you don't know the story itself. But we'll be talking about that. That is actually got a similar sort of tone as Cinderella. So we'll be talking about how that connects. Again, it will be estate planning. Also, for anybody watching, this Thursday at noon, I'm excited to announce that we'll be starting Lunches with the Lawyer. So it's going to be kind of like this, except without the story time element. I'll talk a little bit about concept of law. This week is what is probate. So we'll answer what is probate and then answer any questions that you have while you watch me eat lunch. Why wouldn't that be great? So again, thank you all for joining. If you have more questions in particular, if you go to my attorney Facebook page, Attorney Devin Shanley, or if you go to the page for Peterson, Berk, and Cross, the two co-hosts for this, you'll find contact information. Please feel free to get in contact with us and schedule an appointment or a consultation. That'd be great, because at Peterson, Berk, and Cross, we specialize in you. Thanks.